Hey guys, welcome back for today's video. Got 6 separate polls that have come out over the past couple of days, and they're looking at state-specific results. And we have a bunch of different states here, so we're going to take a look at California as well as Georgia, Arizona, South Carolina. We have 2 polls from there, and then wrapping things up, we're going to take a look at a poll out of the state of Texas. And in general, it's painting a pretty positive picture overall for the Joe Biden campaign, showing a bit more strength than maybe where we have seen him in recent months. So starting off here with this poll, this is from the Public Policy Institute of California. Also, I will mention, if you want to look at any of these specific articles, I'll have links to them all posted at the bottom of the video description. So this one is from, like I said, the Public Policy Institute of California, and Joe Biden leading the pack here. Very competitive at the top with Elizabeth Warren, where Biden's at 24%. Warren is at 23%. Bernie Sanders also up there at 17 percentage points. All of the other candidates are in single digits, where we have Kamala Harris, who is the senator from California, another disappointing poll for her out there in her state, at 8%, Buttigieg at 7%, Andrew Yang at 5%, and Yang typically does a little bit better out in California than maybe what he does in some of these other state-specific results, and you can see how the rest of the line goes after that. So then they also asked who would be your second choice, and this is where Warren and Sanders were at the top. In terms of those second choice, Warren was at 20%. Bernie Sanders was at 19 percentage points. So some interesting numbers there out of the state of California. And California is an extremely important state this time around because it's much earlier on in the process. And also there's a ton of pledged delegates up for grabs. So whoever does really well out of the state of California, those candidates that are able to get at least to that 15 percentage point threshold to be part of the candidates that divvy up the pledged delegates, it's going to put them into a position of strength in terms of getting a ton of those needed pledged delegates potentially behind their candidacy. Now moving over to the state of Georgia, and another strong one here for Joe Biden. And this is a part of the country where I expect Joe Biden to do exceedingly well, just like Hillary Clinton did back in 2016, where you have conservative white Democrats and then also African Americans. These are individuals and voting blocks here in the Southeast that tend to go with the more establishment figure of the Democratic primary, and that's Joe Biden in this case. So we see Biden here leading the pack in Georgia at 31 percentage points of support. We see Elizabeth Warren here at 14%. Bernie Sanders also right there at 14 percentage points. And then just taking a look at the rest of the field, so you have not sure or unsure at 19 percentage points, but then everyone else is in the mid to lower single digits. And somebody like a Pete Buttigieg, we see him bringing in 4 percentage points. This is a portion of the country where people expect Buttigieg to do very poorly, given that his support amongst African Americans is basically non-existent. So now we're going to go over and take a look at the next state. This one is Arizona, and another one where we see Joe Biden leading the pack at 29%, Elizabeth Warren there at 18%, and Bernie Sanders at 16 percentage points. Going down, and it's interesting to look at the mix of demographic supports by these candidates. So we see that the Hispanic vote is actually an even split between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, each at 31 percentage points, where Elizabeth Warren only gets 5% in the state of Arizona, which is kind of interesting because she is still in second place with that 18% overall of support, but not doing very well with an important voting block in a state like Arizona, where we actually even see Julian Castro doing better in Arizona than Elizabeth Warren amongst Hispanic voters. So non-Hispanic voters go for Joe Biden at 28%, and this is where Warren does quite a bit better, where she's at 21%, and then Bernie Sanders only gets 13 percentage points among this voter block. And this is actually something that we see quite a bit, especially in a lot of these southwestern states, where the Hispanic vote is very favorable towards Bernie Sanders as well as Joe Biden, those two candidates in particular. And then also taking a look at the breakup by in terms of education, and actually kind of interesting here. So we see that college graduates, it's actually pretty similar among the top 3 individuals, where we have Biden at 27%, Elizabeth Warren at 21%, and Bernie Sanders at 23%. It's the postgraduate where Elizabeth Warren does her best at 29, followed by Biden at 26. And this is where Bernie does his worst with these very highly educated individuals, probably people that are in the higher earnings income tax bracket. Probably not too big of a surprise to see Sanders not do quite as well with those folks, where he's there at 7%. And then no college degree. Actually, Biden doing the best among this group at 31%, followed by Bernie at 18 and Elizabeth Warren at 10 percentage points. So that was specifically looking at the state of Arizona. Now moving over, I have a couple of South Carolina specific polls, and again, southeastern part of the country where you have a lot of conservative white Democrats and the African American bloc, very positive for Joe Biden. So we can see Biden leading the pack here at 33%, followed by Elizabeth Warren at 13%, so a 20 percentage point lead for Biden, and then Sanders gets 11 percentage points. And another situation where you'd expect Pete Buttigieg not to do all that well in the polls, where he's there down at just 6%, Tom Steyer at 5%. He's pumping a ton of advertisements into these early states, and Andrew Yang actually doing pretty well for himself there at 4 percentage points. Kamala Harris only at 3%, and Cory Booker at 2%, which is really disappointing for their respective campaigns, because these are two individuals that were hoping to get a decent percentage of the African American vote, which is very prevalent in these southeastern Democratic primaries, but Harris only at 3 and Booker at 2 means that their campaigns have not been effective in converting those African American votes into their campaigns away from somebody like a Joe Biden. Now going down and taking a look at the breakup of the demographics here in South Carolina. So white voters, Biden was at 22% and Warren at 17%. So pretty close there. And then Sanders and Buttigieg each actually tied with the white vote in South Carolina at 11 percentage points in this Quinnipiac poll. But the big lead here comes with Joe Biden among the African-American voters, where he's at 44%, followed by Sanders, who's at 10%, Warren at 8%, and Pete Buttigieg receiving less than 1% among black voters in South Carolina. But if you're somebody who's not supporting Biden, something that you can take out of this poll as maybe a positive is still a majority of likely voters at 55% say that they might change their mind before the primary. So that means a lot of people are still willing to potentially change their mind, and that means that even though Biden has a significant lead, let's say, for instance, out of the gate that Biden doesn't do very well in Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada, and he's looking like he's fading. Well, that could be a situation where these people who haven't totally made up their mind yet might go away from Biden and into one of these other candidates who's having more success. So that is something to keep in mind. And then another South Carolina result that actually came out at pretty much the same time. This one out of the University of North Florida. And as we can see, again, another strong poll here for Joe Biden, who's right at the top there at 36%. 23% don't know. Elizabeth Warren is at 10%. Bernie Sanders is at 10%. And we can see everyone else in the single digits. Actually, Tom Steyer doing pretty good in this one at 8 percentage points. Again, like I said, Steyer pumping in millions of his own personal wealth into these early primary states to try to get his campaign off the ground and have success early on, to try to parlay that into future success in these primary states that are after the first four. And then we see all the other candidates are in the mid to lower single digits. Let's see if we can find Pete Buttigieg here. So here we go. Pete Buttigieg only at 3 percentage points. Again, another very poor result for him in a southeastern state like South Carolina. And now to wrap things up, taking a look at the state of Texas. And yet again, we have Biden leading the pack. So the darker blue is Democratic voters, and the light blue is Democratic and Democratic-leaning independents. We see that overall, Biden is leading the field at 28 percentage points. Now, we no longer have Beto O'Rourke in this situation, so his vote is being spread out among the rest of the candidates. We see in second place, it's very close between Sanders and Warren right there at around 18 to 19 percentage points. Then Pete Buttigieg at around 8%, Harris 5%, Castro in the lower single digits along with the rest of the field. And then kind of interesting to take a look at the head-to-head matchups between these Democratic hopefuls and Donald Trump in the state of Texas. And actually, Bernie Sanders is the strongest in this head-to-head matchup, where he's losing to Trump by 4 percentage points, Biden losing to Trump by 5 percentage points, and then Warren losing by around 11 percentage points. Castro, again, losing by around 11 points, Harris losing by 13 points, and Buttigieg losing by about 12 to 13 percentage points. So all of the other candidates that aren't Sanders and Biden have significant deficits to Trump in this UT Tyler pull out of the state of Texas, while Sanders just eked out a slightly stronger head-to-head matchup with Trump in Texas than what we're seeing from Joe Biden, but still very close among those two individuals. And this is what we see a lot of the times in these state-specific results, where it's Sanders and Biden have the strongest head-to-head matchup against Trump, where the rest of the pack is trying to catch up to them. Also, these other Democratic hopefuls that aren't Sanders and Biden don't have quite the same level of name recognition, so you're getting the neither or not sure at a bit higher of a percentage clip than in those other head-to-head matchups, so that also factors into this. But that is the case that we're currently seeing at this point in time in a lot of these state-specific results. And actually, in recent weeks and over the past month or so, Sanders has actually been starting to show a bit more strength in his head-to-head against Trump, where in a lot of these results, he's even doing a bit better than Biden, where that wasn't the case as much, 2, 3, 4, 5 months ago. So those are the 6 polls that I wanted to touch on in today's video. I appreciate you guys stopping by. And again, all of these articles are going to be posted down in the video description if you want to check them out for yourself. I hope to see you guys back here for my next video.